The holidays are a time to feel and create joy. And what could be more joyous than the look on her face as she unwraps a stunning new jewelry piece from Blue Nile? How about getting 50% off your purchase? Blue Nile offers premium quality, priced below traditional retail. Their online experts are available 24/7 to answer any questions and make sure you've picked the perfect gift. For a limited time, you can get 50% off at BlueNile.com. That's 50% off at BlueNile.com.
This episode is brought to you by Columbia Sportswear. It's snowing again, and that wind chill is killer. But you're not worried about that because you shop the Omni Heat Infinity Collection. It's warmth perfected with tiny gold dots that reflect your body heat inside and protect you from the cold outside. No snow or chilly temps can stop you now. Go out anyway. Shop the Omni Heat Infinity Collection now at Columbia.com/infinity.
Judy was boring.
Hello.
Then Judy discovered ChumbaCasino.com.
It's my little escape.
Now Judy's the life of the party.
Oh, baby, mama's bringing home the bacon.
Whoa, take it easy, Judy. The Chumba life is for everybody. So go to ChumbaCasino.com and play over 100 casino-style games. Join today and play for free for your chance to redeem some serious prizes. ChumbaCasino.com. No purchase necessary. Void where prohibited by law. 18+ terms and conditions apply. See website for details.
Hello and welcome to Roll Britannia Parley. I'm Tom and I play a character called Keth Brostein in Roll Britannia. In this series, I'm going to be talking to other podcasters, celebrities and members of the TTRPG community with help along the way from my crewmates from Roll Britannia. Each episode I'll have a special guest who plays the game, talks about the game, makes movies about the game, or has even helped to shape Dungeons & Dragons into what we know today. So this episode is all about a very special person indeed. They're a builder of worlds, a creator of fantastically popular game conventions, a veteran of the US Army and a devoted family man. Not only that, but he was literally there at the inception of Dungeons & Dragons back in 1974. He is, of course, the legendary Luke Gygax. So, joining me now from Roll Britannia is James, the Dungeon Master.
Hey!
Alex, who plays Derek Normalbeard, the Dwarf.
Hello there.
Chip, who plays Jeff Silverbow, the Human.
That sounds like my introduction.
And Paul, who plays Malrus, or Milo, the Halfling.
Shh, spoilers.
How are we all doing, chaps?
Hi, Tom. Yes.
Not
Yeah,
bad.
not too bad, mate. Not too bad. Pretty tired, but I'm excited to kind of dissect this interview a little bit, have a bit of a chat about it. There's some really cool topics that were discussed, so yeah.
I got to actually be there. It was great.
I know. I'm jealous. Very jealous. He seems like a fascinating guy, and he was really lovely when we played with him at UKGA.
Yeah. I think the term I would use is he was very tolerant of me.
Yeah. He did seem to... Yeah, you definitely put him through his paces, didn't you?
Well, I did the thing that I do when you let me play in your game, Chip, as the Dungeon Master, is as the Eternal DM, I very much caused mayhem.
Oh, yeah. Lots of mayhem. Yeah.
I hope that you successfully brought out a multitude of big beasts that would cause most people to be petrified.
No, but there was a large fireball in a very small space.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You did a Malrus.
Oh, and I did turn myself into an owl as well. Well, not quite, but yeah.
You did a Derek.
That was one of my favourite moments.
Yeah, that was fantastic.
The way you dropped in that was
absolutely out of nowhere. Luke's there playing a character and name drops someone no one's ever heard of. There's this slight pause of an awkward moment where everyone in the room goes, "Have we heard of him?" And me, being an owl in the room, just out of nowhere in the back of the room, just "Ooh."
Quality.
Yeah, he's a real good sport. It made him laugh a lot as well. Yeah, and he was great. So I think we should probably give some background of how we came to kind of play Dungeons and Dragons with the mighty Luke Gygax, shouldn't we?
Yes, tell me all about that. So who actually played the game?
I did.
And me.
I also did. And he killed me.
He did.
He did kill you.
So how did this come about?
I could have killed you sooner, to be fair.
That's true. That's true.
I was refraining from hitting you with a second fireball.
He killed me about 5 minutes before the session ended, so that was nice timing. But yeah, so we were obviously at UKGE. If you've seen some of our Patreon stuff, or you've seen the live show that we did for the actual event, if not, go and check them out. Very, very funny shows. I think they're about an hour of recording. But yeah, so we had a booth at UK Games Expo, and as part of it, I think James and Paul very sneakily entered a competition to play D&D with Luke Gygax, and we ended up winning 3 seats.
We did, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it wasn't really sneaky. They posted it on Instagram and said, "Hey, enter here if you'd like to play a game with Luke Gygax." And Paul and I both went, "Well, yeah, that sounds great. We'd love to." So we entered with both our accounts. Well, I think
your personal.
We entered with the Roll Britannia account, my personal account, your personal account, and our TikTok account as well.
Oh, yeah, we did, yeah.
So we entered 4 times and won 3 seats.
Yes, we did, yeah.
That's a win. That's an absolute win.
It's pretty good.
Yeah, that's a very, very good success rate.
Yeah, I thought so.
The 4th seat was Luke, so it was just you 4.
Yeah.
No, it was really nice. We actually had some other attendees there. I think there was probably 7 of us, 6 of us playing total.
Something like that,
yeah. And we had some other attendees there who then we just really got along with, and they came back to our stand, and they sort of, we just had a great time. He's a really good DM, and you can really tell that, like, he's very patient with it, super relaxed, but when the session started to wrap up and we needed to kind of start moving through the adventure a little bit more, he really, really smoothly kind of chopped and changed and sped through certain things, so that was really nice to see. But
so was this a classic adventure or a new game?
It's actually his game.
Yes.
Yep.
Which is?
Quite literally the Gygax game. And Paul bought me a copy of it for my birthday.
I did.
What's it called?
They're the... Go on. Oh, no, you were going to say. I'm just...
It's called... it was called The Eye of Shantufi. And there are currently 2 parts. I think, James, you actually have physical copies of them. I can't remember.
I do, yeah. I mean, I could show you, but this is a podcast, so you can't see them at home anyway. So,
do you know what the individual titles of the modules are?
Oh, it was The Eye of Shantufi. Hold on, let me get. I'm going to go get the books.
Go on.
Run. It's terrible audio content. We'll have to just describe the scene. So,
wow, look at him go! I can't believe he jumped over that bookcase in one go. That was
being
really
chased
impressive.
by a pack of wolves.
Where did they go? Oh my god, he left the window open. No, James, you gotta don't close the window now. Oh my god, they're mauling him. They've mauled
let these wolves in here.
They've left by their own accord. That's very handy.
So you've got the as we have here, we have the eye of Shantufi. There, you see? I'm showing you this in the podcast. So what I'm going to show you is
excellent audio
I am describing the most valuable thing you could imagine. It's gold plated and covered in rubies and gems, and signed by Luke Gygax himself.
Wow!
Yes,
that is a treasure.
And we also have. Oh look! Here we are.
Another.
This one's mine. This is part 2. This is the heart of Shantufi.
Ooh.
We go through the different bodily organs. I don't know what the third one's called, but it has been. I think they've just done their Kickstarter. They've got enough money. It's going to happen. This one is signed to me.
If only you'd interviewed him and he told you. Have some faith.
Well, we'll find out, won't we?
Have some faith.
Maybe
we'll find out.
All of that out of the way, it's time to push the play button. And let's hear what James and Luke were chatting all about.
As one of the really royalty of Dungeons and Dragons, what is Tell us a little bit about what it was like growing up in that environment.
Oh yeah, it was. I had a very special and unique childhood. I don't think I really appreciated it at the time, simply because that my only frame of reference was my family, right? So, just as I'm sure you felt the way you grew up, fairly normal. Then maybe as you got older, you realized, oh wow, well this was unique to my family. Other people don't do that. Gaming was really central to my life ever since since I was a little boy. My earliest memories are hanging out with my dad and friends, and that would include family members, and playing games, whether it was a board game like Dungeon, or some miniatures games, card games, or role playing games. And of course, role playing was very popular uh, by the time I was born. I was born in 1970, so I was 3 years old because D&D was released in January of 1974. My birthday is November, so I was 3 years old when D&D was released. So I don't remember much from that time frame, but I do remember my first game of D&D, and I think that was 1975 that I played D&D for the first time. My dad helped me along. I rolled the dice, but it was amazing. And that first character I played was a ranger in what was to become T1, the village of Hamlet. And I was hired as a man at arms by the group that was playing, which included my older brother. I think it may have included Jim Ward, who was an early player. Drawmage was his character, as well as several other early pioneers of Dungeons and Dragons. And it turns out I was a ranger hired by or in the employ or associated with the Druid of the Woods to make sure they weren't there to do evil and resurrect, the moat house area. And so I ended up joining the group and going through the Giant series and descending into the Drow. So I play tested all those modules, and it was just what I did as a kid. I would come home from school, and probably much like a lot of other young gamers, I would sit down in my dad's den and I would open up the monster manual or the DMG, and I'd look at the pictures and think about, if I build my, if I get enough gold, I can build a castle. When I hit 9th level, and how much money is it going to take, and how long is that going to be? And, designing magic items and making up my own monsters. I would do that, waiting for my dad to finish up kind of writing, and then I'd ask him, "Hey, what are you writing?" And try to read his stuff or ask him questions about things, and that's how we cooked up spells and monsters a lot of times. Was just doing that. So I would say my childhood differed in a sense that I was pretty close to my father, and I enjoyed his pastime, which was also his hobby. His hobby was his job, so we shared that, and he. Just almost through osmosis or just by being there, I participated in the creative process much more so as a young person um, than maybe others did. However, I found that other folks may not have done that with their dad, but their gaming group, they did many of the similar kind of things. Hey, they would look through the books together. They'd come up with monsters and magic items, and they were just as excited and passionate about it as I was. So I think that's universal. My dad just had, my home game happened to be canon for D&D, and so that was pretty special.
Wow. So you see, you've been there from almost the conception of it basically, and you must have seen quite a lot of changes throughout the years, all the different editions of it, and the changes of the culture around it all, and the public perception of everything. What's your experience of how it's changed over the years?
Oh, it's been a massive change. If you think about it, when I was in middle school or high school in the mid and late 80s, you didn't really tell a lot of people that you were a gamer. That wasn't cool. Especially if you were trying to, as a young man, if you were trying to, get a date with one of the girls, they generally, I'm sure there's exceptions, but generally it wasn't. It was kind of like the movie Revenge of the Nerds, if you remember that old one. There was the cool kids, and then there was, the dorks or the nerds, and that wasn't a term like you didn't want to be a nerd. Nowadays, people want to be a nerd because, hey, our, economy is tied to intellectual pursuits much more so with internet and that sort of thing. So the smart people have been quite successful, but that wasn't always the case. Plus, besides the coolness factor and the nerd factor, or whatever you want to say, there was also people who were afraid that it was from the devil. The satanic panic sounds ridiculous, but it was very real at the time. My dad would get death threats from people who were very serious. They thought he was a servant of evil and that he was, polluting young people's minds and putting their souls in jeopardy, which is pretty funny, because anyone who's played D&D, and I think pretty much worldwide, I don't think anyone thinks that D&D is from the devil anymore. That ship has sailed, so to speak. But it was real back then. It was real. People were very passionate about it, and it was scary to get death threats. And to have, sometimes cars would sit outside of our house. My mom would get very nervous if we were playing in the yard. So we had 6-foot high cyclone fencing put around our home. We had 20 acres of land in Wisconsin. And we had 6 Malamute Huskies, big kind of dogs that we'd let out at night to run the perimeter. And we had a very good security system with motion sensors and detectors on all the windows and doors, and we locked up every night. We're very cautious simply because that's how real the threat was perceived by us. Now, so we went from that where people didn't understand D&D and just by simply looking at the cover and seeing an Ifrit or something of that nature, they assume that it's from the devil. That there's real world religions in there, right? My dad always said, if I could throw spells, do you think that I would be making a game? He said, no, I'd be, ruling the world, right? If I could actually control magic, because it's very silly. But people didn't want to hear that. And then, of course, people kind of kept their passion for Dungeons and Dragons a little bit undercover because it wasn't well received. Nowadays, D&D has taken hold of the mainstream. People from all walks of life enjoy Dungeons and Dragons. It's considered cool, even to an extent, to play Dungeons and Dragons, which is funny when you think about it. But it's great. And why is that? It's because it teaches you so much. It exercises your imagination. It stimulates you to read, to put yourself in other people's shoes. It teaches you how to cooperate with others, to solve problems, persuasive speech, leadership skills. All that is being practiced in Dungeons and Dragons. And it really, I think, boosts up especially young people who play it. It reinforces and builds core capabilities that they can use in their life as adults that's going to benefit them, as well as having a great time and forming some strong bonds with friends. So it's a very long answer to a short question, but I'm passionate about the positive aspects of role playing, and I'm really proud of the game my dad created is being used, or has made such a positive impact in people's lives, and is even used by therapists and others to help folks heal from PTSD or help special needs kids learn to work together. And
I can't believe he played his first game at 4 years old.
Yeah,
he was 3 when it was born. Yeah, he was only a year old, wasn't he?
1975, he played D&D for the first time, is what he said.
Wow.
And
he was a ranger, Tom. A lot of similarities.
Yeah.
I mean, you've stepped into some big shoes there.
Oh, absolutely.
Not just because he's a bit of a unit as a guy,
I knew I was onto something good when I made a ranger, and I'm just following in Luke's footsteps.
Yeah,
I quite like. I love the fact that he's he was always been so interested in the whole gaming thing. He was saying that he would be sort of like creating his own stuff whilst he was like, his dad was there working away on creating the actual story stuff. And then he was almost like giddy to, right, I've been doing stuff. Dad's been working away. Right, can we play your thing now, please? Can we do your thing? I'm really excited. And it was just that you could see in the interview that the excitement, and you could hear it in his voice, that just how much he genuinely loved right from a really, really young age, this concept of just making interesting things and picking things out of his head and going, let's just do something, Dad. And they had the inspiration with that as a family and a father figure. It's just really stuck with him, honestly.
It seems like it was a really great sort of bonding experience for them because, his, like you say, his eyes sparkled when he was talking about it, but he was right back to those moments. And the fact that the only real difference which I found really interesting, is that the only real difference between every other person that plays D&D and Luke Gygax is that he just happened to be one of the first, right? And was playing D&D with the guy that was making it up and developing it. And so, like he said, he was like, and he name dropped some specifics as well, but he was playtesting like core modules as a kid that was just him having fun with his family and friends. Like I think the quote from him that really stood out to me was that he was like, it just so happened that my home game was the canon for it.
Yes.
But I find it kind of beautiful that although he obviously had to hide the D&D aspect and stuff, and there was kind of a cultural implication to D&D or being a nerd in general, that as it's grown, as it's influenced more people, he started hearing about more people. I find it really beautiful that he's found that same love outside in the rest of the community as well, that it's like, it's not just him and his dad that were having fun with it. Everybody ends up doing the same thing and creating their own core narrative. It just so happens that his are the ones that are published,
Canon. I mean, ultimately that's what we're doing as well, to be fair.
Exactly, right?
Just imagine being in that position where your dad was just creating this game.
Yeah. And having no idea how big of an impact it was going to have as well.
Because at that age, it must just have been, this is the fun thing that my dad does, and it's really nice, and we spend time together. At that age, you'd have no idea what this would... I mean, even Gary would have had no idea, really, what this would have turned into.
No, what it's making.
The fact that it affects so many people. And but I have to say, I'm very much in the same sort of camp as, I think if I'd have taken up D&D when I was younger, I think I probably would have ended up walking away from it as a teenager as well, and
of course, there's that whole change, right?
It's one of those things where I think it's like you say, it's changed so much over the course of the years, so that if we'd have done this when we were younger, perhaps it wouldn't have stuck as much. But equally, I feel like it's one of those games where, because it has lots of, especially in the 5th edition now, there's lots of similarities between sort of almost real world issues and problems that you can have that kind of link to, in a very small way, but you still have enough escapism to sort of get out there and sort of be a sorcerer and do crazy magical stuff, but still then have to worry about, if I jump off this 20-foot thing, that's going to hurt. And you can start to go, there are real world implications that you can then, even I think at a young age, would have been really helpful. I sort of think about it in a way of the mental health help and the escapism that I ended up finding in performing arts, that for me, that idea of going, you know what, today I don't want to be this weak kid at school. I want to be a powerful paladin that's going to slice down this, that, and the other, as well as cast spells and be amazing. I genuinely think that it could have really helped in the progression, and I'm very fortunate to find performing arts, but this kind of game and the group aspects is very, very similar. That's why I love the role-playing element of it all.
I found it very interesting when he said, I remember seeing in one of the later seasons of Stranger Things how the boys would really be hounded for being the strange kids who played Dungeons and Dragons. And then when Luke mentioned satanic panic, people really did think, the attitudes back then, that it was almost like devil worship.
It's crazy to me that again, like historically looking at it, it's not that mad, because if you're looking at the 1970s, mid 70s, especially in America, and then the 80s, you have this large wave of like Americans joining cults and alternative ways of living and these kinds of things. And because people didn't really understand it, seemingly, and that, this guy's creating a world and encouraging other people to play it and get together and that kind of thing, it's very easily lost in translation when people don't give it a chance. What I find particularly interesting is this idea of like the clique and sort of jock versus nerd culture around the same period in high school, and also mixing that with like devil worship and being like, you're just a weak little nerd who worships the devil. I find that really interesting.
One of the most powerful beings you can think of.
Yeah, exactly right.
He raises a good point with what his dad says, though. I mean, ultimately, it's such a weird concept to think, yeah, you worship the devil, you have magic powers, but also we can beat you up.
Yeah, exactly. That's what I mean.
Why waste my time doing this if I could be magical?
Yeah,
well, he wouldn't spend his time making a game if he could cast spells.
Yeah, he would rule the world, like Luke says. You know, I found that fascinating. But his stories, man, from the level to which that went to, and the fact that just because his dad invented a game that we all have fun playing now, at the time, like he was saying, they got death threats and they had to kind of
6 foot high fences and dogs and stuff.
Bump up the security around there.
It's been scary times.
You know?
One Malamute's quite a lot of dog.
Yeah, but 6.
Yeah, it must have been terrifying. You know, like you said, like cars parked outside the house and they couldn't play in the front garden and stuff like that. Again, all because his dad invented a system where you get to roll a dice twice if you have some special ability, and you might get +6 on your hiding roll and stuff like that. It's like mad, utterly mad.
It's just like reading a book, but kind of more active.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
It's like it's playing
reading a book with mates.
A video game.
Yeah,
it's playing a video game, but
in a power cut.
Yeah, exactly. You know, with pen and paper. It's really, really odd.
But I suppose then they didn't really have massive amounts of video games as comparisons,
no, of course
did they?
not.
So, they see essentially a scary-looking goat on the front of a book, and they go, well, it's got horns. That must be the devil. That must be evil. And it's just, I think a lot of it was just, as I think he sort of went through it, and as we've gained as a sort of species a little bit more sort of thought process throughout things and gone, okay, well, maybe we should think this thing through. It was just a massive misunderstanding over a lot of it. But it is terrifying, like you say, to think that a misunderstanding to that level can turn such a beautiful thing that we look at now and go, that's amazing, to how it came from such terrible roots, essentially.
But I think, in a sense,
scary roots.
The cult classic kind of video game, game aspect of it, and the fact that you have this mystery and this kind of weird publicity of it being to do with Satan kind of serves to draw more people in a little bit, because they're like, well, what's this all about? And then it becomes, it's got a reputation, people actually then have fun with it, and it becomes as big as it is. I think we're definitely in like a real golden age of D&D
nerdiness,
acceptance for people that play it and kind of hang out and enjoy it. Because like Luke was saying, it's used by therapists. It allows you, especially as a kid, to put yourself in other people's shoes. It's got this idea of agency and stuff like that. And like you said, Chip, about him growing up with those narrative skills, those collaborative storytelling skills, definitely affects you and your growth as a person, which I think was really cool that he kind of talked about. It's nice to see from his indoor perspective, individual perspective.
So I'm glad you brought that up, actually, because Luke mentioned just the huge amount of skills that playing the game can really bring you in life. Problem solving, figuring things out, and making friends and that sort of thing. Now, he's been playing forever. And we've been playing, the majority of us, for 3 or so years, apart from myself. But have you found that any of those things...
170-something episodes.
Have you guys found that some of those extra skills, does that ring true with yourselves as well, as things improve since playing the game?
I've learned that setting things on fire it has real world consequences. Or could have real world consequences. So I've stopped lighting as many fires as I used to. In reality,
just some.
The biggest thing that I'd learned really through the process of D&D, in all seriousness, is to just pay more attention to what's going on around me, because I realise so often in game the idea of not rolling a perception check, or not just, we just walk in and go, oh, you're presented with a figure. Cool. Well, the world around me is oblivious. I'm just seeing one person, and we'll just roll with it. And that ends up in, terrible circumstances or things that we've got to get out of. And I like to think that I would like to not get kidnapped or put in a prison or things like that in real life. So just, when I walk into a room, try and have a little scout around what's going on. Where am I? Know my surroundings. It's just been something that as we've started playing more and we've started realizing we need to do more, I find that I'm doing it more alive.
What about you, Paul? What did you take away from that?
I think pretty much the same as Chip, really. I try and pay attention a little bit more. You never know, especially sitting next to the DM as a day job. You never know what he's going to do.
I see. Just roll well on stealth and he won't notice.
Yeah.
He rolls exceptionally poorly on stealth, usually.
This is true.
Usually, yeah.
I think the biggest thing that we all have to remember throughout the whole learning process, and we all have to apply to real life, is that we don't need to murder everyone that confronts us. We can talk to them and reason.
I mean, that is an important life lesson.
Yeah.
It
shouldn't have taken us this long to learn.
For me to adjust to, yeah.
That's why, arguably, there's more of it going on in game for me.
So
stress relief.
So you're saying take D&D away from you and you might go on a rampage.
That's what I'm hearing.
Okay, you've heard him, ladies and gents. The choice is up to you. You can keep listening to us and keep us going, or Paul's on a rampage.
I can see the headlines in the sun now. D&D murder spree.
Oh no! Let's not set the game back.
Satanic panic thing, you know.
They've done
It rolls a natural one.
They took it away from me.
These kids are always obsessed with violence. That's why they play so much D&D.
Now, with all that in mind, get away from the murdering and the Satan just for a second.
Can I just Can I just make very quick? Say something quickly about what I've
the Satan,
sort of learned. Not to Satan, but just in terms of like what I've sort of learned and how D&D as a sort of skill set has influenced me, especially in terms of having a consistent game, a long running campaign with the same group of people. But then also visiting other games, like either for promo stuff or at the UKGE, and kind of telling a collaborative story with people that I've never met before. It's been really helpful for collaborative filmmaking stuff and sort of my day job, but it also has really helped me kind of understand group dynamics and almost like read people's tells a little bit, poker wise, where you can see when the dynamic is off, or when somebody's worried, or when somebody's having a great time, or do you know what I mean? Because it is a social game and it's a group storytelling game. You really learn to work as a team or collaborate a lot better with the people around you, and I think that that's a really important aspect of it, which is why I personally, like, beyond the fact that it's cool to be able to teleport and throw fireballs, I really, really love that aspect of it, and that's what makes me keep coming back.
It's the escape that I really enjoy about the game. Just from a personal note for myself, it's the escape away from, I think for all of us, escape away from our normal lives. You can do whatever you like. It's helped to... Luke mentioned it in the interview, actually. It can be very beneficial, especially I could relate to him as we're both veterans. It's especially beneficial for people who have struggled in the forces or since coming out or experienced certain events in there. And it takes your mind away to an entirely different place. When you're playing that game for an hour, 2-3 hours, whatever, you're not thinking about anything else. You're thinking about your character. And it just it reignites your imagination. And I think it's really, really beneficial. I think you guys as well, especially away from maybe the humdrum of life, have you found that as well, that it has really helped to... Doesn't matter about the mortgage, doesn't matter about... I've got this on and that to do, and this is coming to work, or like that needs paying. It's like, all right, now I'm just playing my character. And the only thing that decides is the dice.
I totally agree. It doesn't matter. What matters at the moment is like, oh shit, I wish I could cast, fireball, but I'm out of spells. So what's going to do more damage? Is it my dagger? Is it my thing? Or how am I going to get past this guard? That escapism is much needed, and especially when we go away for our recording weekends and stuff. You just sit down. And it was very similar playing with Luke at UKGE. And one of the things that he mentioned about playing at GaryCon with people like Vince Vaughn and The Big Show, which I found
it's a big name insane. I was going to come on.
Saved by Vince Vaughn.
Crazy, we'll go through those names in just a moment. It's one heck of a list.
It's amazing. But the fact that he was just like, oh, it's just like playing any other D&D game is is great, because there is that core aspect of it of like, well, I don't have to worry about anything else but the people around this table. And
it's kind of an equalizer as well.
It is. Yeah, it really feels like it. You know,
actually, it's that core aspect really that was one of the questions I put to him, and I wanted to get to grips. We had a really nice, friendly chat about all sorts of fun things and about his history and about his experience of it. But I think it's impossible to talk about D&D without talking about some of the controversies that have surrounded it for the last, well, probably really since it's had this massive resurgence.
Yeah.
Since lots of people have become more popular and people have sort of taken ownership of it. And one of the things that, I've always said is actually D&D in itself is great, but D&D is the people that play it. It's not necessarily the rules. And as a part of that, we've got to look at the way D&D was and the way it is now and what's different, and whether D&D still stands up. And and he was really gracious in actually answering what was quite I imagine a relatively difficult question from his point of view. And this is what he said.
D&D appeals to a global community at this point. And I think as time has progressed, sensibilities have progressed. If you go back, 50 years in time and look at probably any publication or, movies and how movies were cast and things like that, it wouldn't fit with today, right? Go watch movies. Even the pacing of movies is very different. So that's just societal change as we progress. So I don't think that's particularly unusual or unexpected. But if you don't have a perspective where you can reflect on it historically and do some analysis, then I think you might get excited about these changes. I just think this is how life goes, how culture changes and evolves. And so I don't get overly excited about it. Sometimes if people say like, "Oh, the guys who wrote and created D&D, they were misogynists or racists or something like that," I understand people who are saying that weren't there. They don't know, and so their perspective is maybe just from the current time they're in, looking at it with today's eye and going back that number of years. Of course, there's going to be things that seem off or odd or unusual. However, those were the times, and that was kind of the accepted part. So I try to be understanding and realize that's where that comes from. Having been there, I can tell you, despite how folks want to interpret it, and it's okay to interpret it. It's like literature. You can read a book and you come up with your own decision on what it is. I think they're flawed if they say there's some sort of racism baked into a fantasy game. And I would just caution people: do you really want to put a whole bunch of real world problems into your silly pastime, game? You can. I mean, and if you're having fun, more power to you. But I prefer to kind of keep my bad guys simple and bad, so I can just like stormtroopers. Does anyone feel bad about shooting a stormtrooper in the Star Wars movie? No, right? We don't hear their backstory. They're just the bad guys, right? That they're meant to be beat up. So kind of same thing for my goblins or whatever it may be in my fantasy games. The core of the game is storytelling, right? We love storytelling, and the difference with role playing is you get to participate more as opposed to consume a novel or a movie. That's great. You may identify with certain characters in there, and it's very interesting, but it's a different experience than being presented a scenario, a situation, and then through interplay with the people who are also, a persona in the story, as well as, the controller, the game master, the referee. You all, shape that. Sure, the referee has an idea of where it's going, but guess what? You, as the players, can turn right where he thinks you're going to go left or whatever it is, and they have to be able to adapt to that. Or, I'm not going to resist this thing. I'm going to side with these guys, or I'm going to, whatever it is, a myriad of changes you can go. And so you're cooperatively developing that storyline together, and that's way different. And so, that's the core bit of it. And there's no hard baked in there ingredients that you can't change. You can role play gosh, fuzzy heroes, right? You can take your little stuffed animals with your kids, and you can make up a storyline and teach them how to play, or you can play D&D or science fiction or spies. It doesn't matter.
So, he very eloquently, I think, put it into perspective, sort of at least how he sees it. And I was just kind of interested in your guys' thoughts on it, how D&D's changed, like, because obviously he raises a very important point about not judging things that are 40 years old or whatever at this point by the same standards as we have today, because culture moves on, sensibility moves on, and like you say, D&D is about the people that play it. What I love about it is that it is so modular that you remove those certain things, cool, it's your game, you know?
Mm-hmm. To me, it's not even what when he was saying about the fact that it's judging something that was historic. For me, it's the other point that he made that really hit home, and I think really rings true, that it's why bring those issues that are genuine issues out in the world that are bad and need solving. But at the moment, there is an escape in the world of D&D, and that's what we use it for, to try and free ourselves. So do you really want to bring real world hate and real world issues into something that's an escape and doesn't have any sense? So it's not real. It doesn't have to have that but stickiness.
Also, importantly, if you did want to play that kind of game, have at it. It's all there for you. But if you don't, then you can tailor it to exactly what the people around the table are comfortable with playing, what you're interested in, and it's fantastic. They've created a framework that works really well, and yet whilst kind of tonality and maybe the what would you call it, the actual kind of facade, or the detail of it may change over time because of different subject matters and stuff like that, or personal preference. The actual structure remains the same in that it completely allows you to do that. It's essentially a TTRPG Lego set, right?
Yeah. You just skin it in whatever you want.
Exactly, right? You can build whatever you want out of it.
Like playing Fortnite, isn't it? You just put a different skin over it and you go, well, okay, we'll play it like this then.
Yeah.
I really like the fact, I said this to Luke. I love the fact that this game it's been around for 50 years now. You think about what the world was like 50 years ago. It's a totally different place to what it is now.
Well, 50 years ago, they thought that D&D was the devil's work, literally.
Yeah, you know what I mean? And, and I will be the first to say that actually I think that public perception, public interest in equality is much better now. And there's still a long way to go with a lot of things. Absolutely. But I love the fact that D&D can still exist as a game and take out these things that were acceptable then, and, rightly or wrongly, and from a personal preference, I think wrongly, but that was how it was then.
Yeah, exactly.
And I don't think you can judge a game now by those standards.
Yeah.
Especially since it's before any of it really happened, it was already a safe space. It had become the place where the excluded could go to have fun and could go and become part of a community. So the idea that there was, a hatred in it, I kind of agree that
I don't think it was intentional hatred. I really don't.
No,
I think it's the way things,
It's like when when your nan uses choice words and that kind of thing. It's a generational, and like he was saying about,
and it shouldn't be now.
Culture moves
Absolutely.
on. Exactly,
100%.
right. Exactly.
It
but
would
then,
be written into it
the
now.
nice thing is that can come out, and it doesn't have to be in there anymore, and the game still remains.
Yeah. But the core concept
strong.
is, because the core concept is so simple, like you just get together and you tell a story together. It's great. The structure itself is amazing, and like you say, it does have that scope too. And thankfully, there are examples where they have decided to. It does have that scope to move with the times and, and evolve.
Yeah.
At Grainger, we're for the ones who specialize in saving the day, and for the ones who've mastered the art of keeping business moving. We offer industrial-grade supplies for every industry, with same-day pickup and next-day delivery on most orders, all backed by real people ready to help. So you can get the right answers and products right when you need them. Call, click Grainger.com, or just stop by. Grainger, for the ones who get it done.
Tired of ads crashing your comedy podcast party? Good news. Ad-free listening on Amazon Music is included with your Prime membership. Just head to amazon.com/ad-free comedy to catch up on the latest episodes without the ads. Enjoy thousands of Acast shows ad-free for Prime subscribers. Some shows may have ads.
What are you saying, Tom?
Well,
no, Tom, are you here?
Well, yeah.
When did you get here?
Sorry. You put a quarter in and it's just wound us up.
Yeah.
Luke.
Going back to the very beginning, 50 years ago, since when Dungeons & Dragons started, obviously Luke was introduced to it, and it was really, really young, and his dad was running it. Now, I've actually been lucky enough to run a game, but I'll just go a D&D a bit later. Now, there's another dad in the show here. So when do you think, Paul, you're going to start running your games for your little ones? What age? Luke set a record. So how old are yours going to be when you start playing?
I don't know. I think I might wait till Ada's a little bit more older.
Yes, very little.
That might be helpful.
So we've got a full party on the go rather than half a party. But I don't know. Maybe when she's like 4.
Okay, fair enough.
4 or 5. See if she can. I'm sure she'll be able to roll a dice then and see what she can. Eli doesn't. He doesn't shut up at the minute, so I'm sure she'll be able to talk away into a story.
That'll be perfect.
Yeah.
So, Paul, you were talking about playing D&D with your kids, and I wanted to know what, if Luke Gygax was going to play D&D, what character he would play. So I asked him.
You've created these amazing books, the Orcrim ones, and we got to play one of the some of it with you, which was unbelievable, by the way. I've been telling everyone.
Oh, great. I'm glad you liked it.
So I have a couple of questions for you. One is, obviously, what was your sort of inspiration behind this, and what would be your, if you were going to play a character in it, what would your build be for that character for you?
Oh, that's neat. Yeah. So what was my inspiration for it is back in 2013, I decided I wanted to write a tournament module for GaryCon, which is a convention I hold in Lake Geneva, Wisconsin, my hometown, every year in honor of my father. And it kind of grew out of his, very sad event. He passed away in March of 2008, and we gathered together after his funeral because there was an outpouring of, general public, where some people just decided they were going to go pay their respects in Lake Geneva. So, I threw a little gathering to welcome anyone who wanted to come in and just say, show their, pay their respects, so to speak. And of course, that was a great time, and I found it very cathartic for my family and I. And so it became a yearly event, and it grew into a GaryCon, a 3,000 person convention in our little town. So my father really enjoyed working with my brother and I to do creative pursuits, right? And so I was in the Army. I just retired in 2022. And so I didn't have a lot of time to do that while he was alive. We did the Lost City of Gaxmore through Troll Lords in 2000, and my father play tested that, gave us tips, and it was very enjoyable. So as an homage to him, I wanted to write a Dungeons and Dragons tournament module. And so I'd just gotten back from a tour to Iraq in 2011, and some of those concepts, some of those experiences were on the top of my mind, as well as writing something that would capture people's attention, their sense of wonderment. I remember in 2013 we didn't see 5th edition D&D, right? So it was Pathfinder, there was 4th edition that was out there, but in my opinion, it was getting kind of stale to a certain extent. We weren't seeing, like we see now, a whole bunch of people reaching into other cultures and folklore and mythos to really give fresh takes on monsters and things like that. It was pretty much what I was seeing was still our very Western European oriented. And so I thought, well, why not dip into the physical environment of Iraq? I was in Iraq, the desert. It's 130 degrees out there. Wearing body armor at 130 degrees and thinking you're going to run around and do a whole bunch of stuff, not realistic. It's very hot and it's hard to do. So I wanted to bring that home to people, as well as just have a chance to take even some standard monsters, right? And reskin them or put twists on them, reach into, Arabic or Middle Eastern folklore to pull out some creatures. And my excuse for kind of tweaking monsters or reskinning monsters or finding variations of monsters was to make it a little bit to mix like a little bit of Gamma World in there or Teenage Mutant Turtles after the bomb. I loved that as a kid. So there was a big cataclysm, and there was, for lack of a better term, a magical nuclear war, and there was the blighted lands are basically in a magically irradiated area, and any creatures that go in there get twisted by these forces that are there and come out a little bit differently. So that's what I was thinking in 2013 when I started writing this and just cranking out a module a year for the Gary Con tournament. Now the module you played in was written in 2020, and it was written for 5th edition, and that takes place there's less environmental challenges in that one. That takes place in the main city, so it's more of an urban adventure, and has your standard, I would say standard, but I tried to write it to, again, as a tournament module really, but to engage players in a more current style of play, not simply just going dungeon crawl or outdoor adventure. There's more role play. There's a little bit of puzzle solving and interactions there, as well as combat. So I tried to balance that out. And I totally lost where we were on that one. If you wind me up and put a quarter in me, I will keep talking. So.
it's already interesting, so I don't like to just interrupt you. But I mean, it's fascinating, the story.
Oh, what character would I play?
Yeah, no, let's. Yeah, if you were going to play in your own game, someone else, even your dad, maybe DMing.
Sure.
If you were hypothetically, what build would you have?
Oh man, it's tough now because there's so many. 5th edition is good, and they've smoothed out a lot of things. So I don't think there's a particular class that's so much better than others. It's really going to be what you like to play. I do like spellcasters. Yeah, spellcasters are pretty good. Although I do like to get in and mix it up. I might have to go with paladin simply because there's a little bit of spellcasting in there, a little bit. But you get to go and tank a bit. And I do like to tank. So either that or classic, just a wizard, right? Either wizard, full on wizard, not a warlock, not a sorcerer, not a bard, none of that. Yeah. Either wizard or probably paladin, just because you're tough, got a lot of cool abilities.
Nice. I like that. If you had a couple of words for advice as the experienced dungeon master that you are, and I would guess the forever DM, as it seems so common. Once you get into it, you get stuck doing it.
Yeah, I do DM a lot more now, but I'm lucky in the sense that I get to play D&D mostly on like live plays.
Yeah,
which is a lot of fun. It is a bit different doing a live play because you're conscious of that audience, and you really have to describe things and be more entertaining, right? Than you would if you're just playing with your friends, right? You might be a little bit more, you might just be a little bit more goofy or whatever, or even be more serious when you're doing if you're just playing at home, right? You wouldn't have to be so bombastic.
Yeah, I mean, it's true. We had our first live show at the UK Games Expo just gone, so I know where you're coming from. It was a very different experience. But for the forever DMs out there, if you had a few words of advice, what would you say?
Sure. Well, I guess for new DMs, because I've heard, thank you for DMing, right? Because so many people want to play and there's not DMs out there. So for new DMs, don't be afraid. It's okay. You're going to make mistakes. I make mistakes every time I DM. I'm sure I get something wrong, but that's all right. As long as you're consistent and you keep it consistent and fair. For the players, they're going to go with it. They're not going to question you. They're going to be thankful that you did that. If you don't know what your style is, it's okay. Again, watch. Get on YouTube and watch some other people DM. Go down to your hobby store and watch someone DM, and pick and choose what things people do that you like, and then incorporate them, and you'll develop your own style. You'll feel like an imposter at first. Everybody does. Whether it's DMing or some other activity, fake it till you make it. That's what they taught me in the Army. Fake it till you make it, and you'll be all right. For experienced DMs, remember what it's like. Remember what excites your players, right? Get to know the players at your table. I know it's a bit harder at if you're doing a one shot or a convention game, but if you're going to get a group together, I would encourage you to go ahead and use that term that the people are doing a session 0, right, where you're building your characters. Use that as an opportunity to, oh great, this is your character. You know, what do you see them doing, or just get some interest of what the person might like. Give them. I'd also suggest after the session 0, you sit down and think and write down what's going on. What does that person want? And think about what's an ulterior motivation for them, or what's a secondary motivation for them, right? What are they doing that's their own storyline within the group, right? Because it's going to be like a group storyline. If you can give little bits to each person, and then weave in some of those throughout your main storyline, that'll help keep them interested, and also might come up with some really neat, unexpected interplays with the characters, right? And just give inspiration, and they're going to feed you ideas as well. So listen to those players, kind of get that, prime the pump a little bit, and then don't be surprised when they come up with ideas that feed into your story and go, oh yeah, that's great. And also be flexible. You may have an idea of what this riddle meant, or how this is going to be, or what's going on, and the players in their table discussion make up with a way better idea. It's all right for you just to say, oh yeah, that's way cooler. Make that little note on the page and pretend that that's how it was the whole time. That's okay. You can do it. It's cooperative storytelling. All right.
Nice. I'll take some of those notes if you don't mind.
yeah, I should too. Yeah, those are good. It's good advice.
So if for you as a DM, what's your preference in terms of at your home table? Do you prefer theatre of the mind? Do you like little minis, or do you go the full way with virtual tabletop? What's your choice?
I do not use the virtual tabletop, and that's mostly because I'm a bit of a Luddite, so it's a challenge for me. I think that will be a very valuable tool for most people, and I think that players, the majority of players, like it. So I think it's a skill to develop and to use, and technology is there where it's honestly it's more economical and less hassle to do it virtually, and it's going to look pretty good. Sorry, Stefan, don't beat me up for that. Good friends with Stefan Picorni, who makes a Dwarven Forge, which is the Cadillac of Train. It is gorgeous, and man, and when he does those setups, it is amazing. And people who paint miniatures and have the patience to do that, it's an art form, and it's beautiful. So I think that always that has a place, and that's cool. But I think practically for people who are traveling to conventions, or maybe don't have unlimited resources, you might be able to buy something electronically that'll fit that need. Me, I tend to use theater of the mind. That's how my dad ran it for the most part. If there's a key encounter where I think it's beneficial to help people visualize, and that's important, then I can either sketch it out or break out. I do have some Dwarven Forge train and things like that I could break out and use. But I think part of the dangers to having props on the table like that, or setting scenery, is it can limit you also, right? Maybe you're like, can I jump up on the table and grab the chandelier and swing across and get past the guys this way that are blocking the scene? Well, if I have it all laid out, there is no chandelier there. I'm sorry, there's only torches on the wall. There's no chandelier up above. But then I've limited the rule of cool, right? I can't let them visualize this and do it, right? So I kind of limit some of the unlimited potential of the game if I have too much described there. So I think it's a balance.
Yeah. The rule of cool is a massive part of I think a really, really good game of D&D, and it sounds like it's approved by Luke Gygax, so I'm happy with that.
Yeah, don't let the rules get in the way of having a good game.
Cool. I think we're sort of running out of time now. So I was just going to ask you maybe if you've got any special memories from GaryCon or from your childhood that really stand out to you. And of course, to let us know where we can buy the game and information about how to get tickets and stuff to GaryCon.
Oh yeah, absolutely. So if you want to see what I'm up to, you can go to gaxworks.com. That's my publishing company, GAXXWORX.com. You can order some PDF copies of the modules that we mentioned, the Eye of Shintufi and Heart of Shintufi. We're working on the Fate of Shintufi. That Kickstarter closed, and the third part will be out for that and wrap up that trilogy. I'm also working on some novels in the world of Okrim with my friend James A. Hunter, accomplished novelist from Shadow Alley Press. So those will be coming out next year. We're going to write a trilogy. The first one should be out next year. I'm very excited about that. GaryCon happens in March of every year. This will be a very special GaryCon 16. But why is it special? It's the 50th anniversary of Dungeons and Dragons, and I was just speaking with senior marketing rep at Wizards of the Coast yesterday. She actually stopped by my house and we chatted. And it's going to be the first convention that Wizards goes to in their 50th year. It's going to be GaryCon, and they want to do some really special stuff. So you can get badges by going to, well, you can't get them now. They're going to go on sale July 29th, but you can, bookmark it, bookmark GaryCon.com, so you can go there July 29th, buy a ticket and buy a badge, get a hotel room, and fly from the UK or wherever you're at to Lake Geneva, Wisconsin, small town in southeastern Wisconsin that you probably would never visit other than the fact that Dungeons and Dragons was written there. And, that little place where the home on 330 Center Street that I grew up in, in the den there where my dad wrote Dungeons and Dragons on an old typewriter, has come to impact, I would argue, hundreds of millions of people, and perhaps even billions of people across the globe. He's changed the world through the reach of Dungeons and Dragons. It's influenced so many people. So that's where you can get a badge for GaryCon. However, just to kind of highlight how much D&D has changed and how it's gone from a very niche, nerdy thing to incredibly popular. I played in a game at GaryCon this year, and it was just it wasn't recorded. It was just an off-grid game with a friend of mine, Andrew Perry, who runs a really neat campaign beyond Barrier Peaks. So S3 Barrier Peaks is a neat module, and it was basically, what if a colony, a big spaceship crashed in a fantasy world? How would people interpret that, right? So that's what Barrier Peaks is about. So it's got robots and all sorts of cool stuff in there. But Barrier Peaks only covers a couple decks of the ship. Well, Andrew, as a boy, talked to my dad at a convention, and my dad told him, oh yeah, there's another 73 decks or whatever it is. So as a boy, he just went home and started mapping and creating the other 73 decks. And he played that for 30 some years. So it's a really fun campaign. And I told my friend Joe Manganello about that, and he brought some of his gaming group with him. And so we played just a fantastic game with, Vince Vaughn, who's an actor, Tom Morello's guitarist for Rage Against the Machine, amongst other bands. Joe, of course, he's loves D&D. He's an actor, writer, director. His brother Nick, who's producer. Chris Pranaski, who's just a wonderful creative guy. He's the head of Titmouse Studios, which does Vox Machina, as well as many other animated series. And Paul White, also known as the Big Show. He's a wrestler for WWE. And my friend James Hunter and I, and Mike Morrells, who wrote 5th Edition, all played this game. And I tell you what, sure, those guys, whatever, they're famous or celebrities. We were just playing and being nerds, and it was great. And I remember I was playing an Elven Wizard or Magic Users 1st Edition, and we defeated the Mind Flayer, but there was who was controlling robots, right? He had an armband controlling robots. And so I'm like, great, okay, sweet, he's down. Let's rush in this room. There's a time, time is ticking. There's bad stuff that's going to happen behind us. We don't get into this ship and submerge and get to where we need to go. So I run, we go in this order. Two other people run in the room. I run in the room. Tom Morello's like, oh, there's still some of those metal golems running around. I'm going to grab a boom fruit and throw it in there. So he grabs a plasma grenade and he throws it into the room. That's going to kill all of us. I'm like, what are you doing? Paul White, 7 foot tall guy, right? He's huge. Most serious gamer you're ever going to see. He's like mean mugging Tom. He's like, what are you doing? Right. And I'm thinking, I'm done. That's it. My character's dead. What a disappointment. And Vince Vaughn's also playing a wizard. And he's like, hey, I got a wall of force. I'm going to go ahead and shape that. I can shape that, right, to be like a parabola. And so he's, gets up there and they spend 15 minutes with the DM on the screen they're using to, where they mapped it out of where he's going to put it at what angle and this sort of stuff. And then he makes a die roll. He ends up saving the three of us who are in the room through the great use of wall force. I was like, that was one of many, but it was tension. It was story, the teamwork, the tension. And that was great. That was just a good game of D&D. The fact that I was playing with a bunch of folks who had some level of, cultural impact or fame or whatever was really secondary to that. What was cool is that we were all there playing and nerding out, and I get to say, Vince Vaughn saved my character by through great knowledge of a wall of force spell, which I didn't expect. So thank you. He was playing Gamelon was his character. So thank you, Gamelon, for saving my ass in that.
Thank you, Gamelon. Thank you, Vince Vaughn, as well.
Yeah.
So one last thing then. If as part of the enduring legacy, really, of D&D and the legacy of your father and everything that has really come from that, what's your most important sort of lesson that you've learned as a result of being a part of this incredible, world?
I mean, the thing that stands out to me the most is I guess I feel really fortunate to be able to help carry forward this legacy. There's a whole story for those who don't know. You should read on the origins of D&D and the origins of my father. There's a book by Michael Whitwer called Empire of Imagination. Easy, quick read, but it'll give you the once over. My dad created this game. He was absolutely destitute. We were so poor. I wore hand-me-down clothes for my sisters sometimes. We didn't have enough food to eat. My mom gardened and canned food so we could eat. But he put everything he had, actually borrowed money. His best friend borrowed money to publish this game. And it was not a sure thing by any stretch of the imagination. Unfortunately, his best friend was his business partner. He passed away at 36 years of age. He had a heart attack. And he had to take on some other investors. So my dad took on outside investors who held more than 50% of the company. Fast forward a few years, they sold their stock to somebody else who kicked him out of the company. He lost everything. The game Dungeons and Dragons belonged to the company, not him. He didn't protect it personally, right? He started it with his best friend. So my family has nothing from any of this stuff. Like I said, I joined the Army and sent myself to college and all that. Same for the rest of my family. None of us have anything there. What I do have, what my father did leave me, is this wonderful legacy of Dungeons and Dragons, and it has helped so many people. I love hearing the stories that people tell. I had a learning disability. I was struggled. People thought I was, they thought I was dumb or whatever it was, right? They treated me differently because of this. They didn't have hope. I saw the covers on these books, and I saw people playing it, having fun. I wanted to do that, and so it motivated me to sit down and read and overcome my dyslexia. And I loved it. And now I'm a lawyer or a doctor or whatever it is, or somebody who is painfully shy and just couldn't, they couldn't talk to other people without feeling, they just would stay inside, stay in a shell. But by taking on a heroic persona in a game, they learned and they said, oh, I can apply that to my real life. And it's helped them. They've met their spouses, their best friends for years. They escaped whatever situation it was and met great people. And that's the sort of thing that really makes me motivated to want to keep organizing Gary Con, to get out there, to be, believe it or not, writing games, not the most lucrative of jobs out there. I could do other things with my time, but this is really cool and I love it. And I just feel blessed to have some small part of that help with carrying that legacy forward.
Awesome. Oh, I really appreciate you taking the time to speak to us, and for, as I said at the beginning, I really appreciate you, running that game for us at the UK Games Expo. It was just mind-blowingly good. Really incredible.
I'm glad you enjoyed it, and thanks to the organizers of UK Games Expo for having me and my family out there. We had just a wonderful trip.
Awesome. Thanks for taking that selfie in the shirt we gave you. And just remind everyone where the websites where they can get your books and everything for us.
Yeah, gaxworks.com. GAXXWORX. Go there and click in the store. You get you a cool T-shirt or pick up some PDFs of the module.
Awesome.
And if you want to order them, Trick or Treat Studios is my distributor in the United States. I don't have an international distributor as of yet, so still looking for one.
Cool. Well, maybe we can help you find one.
All right.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for taking the time to speak to me today. And if you've ever got time to make a guest appearance on the game side of the podcast, we'd love to have you on. Maybe you could come on and be the big bad right at the end. Who knows?
Oh yeah, that sounds fun. Crush them mercilessly.
Yeah, please do. Please do. They deserve it. Awesome. Thank you so much, Luke. I really, really appreciate it.
My pleasure.
So what was the biggest thing from each of you? What was the biggest thing you guys took away from that interview? What are you going to take on next? What about you, James? What was the biggest thing that stood out from you?
I mean, I think Alex has sort of touched on it already. It's really that it's this D&D is very much not just a fun game to play, but it is both. It's simultaneously a fantastic piece of sort of mental agility almost that's great for your well-being, but also a great equalizer of people, because no matter what walk of life you're from, whether you're Hollywood A-lister or just some guy in his bedroom during a COVID lockdown, you can play the same game and have the same experience. And I think that leveler of people makes D&D like somewhat like unique. Even more so than things like video games, because video games, your experience can be changed by the equipment that you have, and the amount of funds and time you have available to commit to those sorts of things. Whereas actually with D&D, you can play it by yourself, you can play it with a group online, in person, with minis, with VTTs, with just your theatre of the mind. You don't even have to buy dice. You can literally do it with a pen and paper and an access to the internet. It really is that simple, and I think there are very few things that can be done with such a benefit to not just your entertainment but also your mental well-being than D&D really. And I think that Luke really summed that up quite heavily, quite well.
What about you, Chip?
Yeah,
what's he left you with?
So I think James sort of touched on it a little bit with the whole theatre of the mind when he mentioned in one of the answers about his play preference, and that he has dabbled a little bit with the sort of screens, but normally wouldn't go with that. And equally, there are definitely, it's a little bit more costly. Then there's obviously the minis option maps and things, but I mean we've had minis and things like that, but the idea of it not being theatre of the mind seems a little bit weird to me, because all of ours is theatre of the mind. And I think, to be honest, it works almost. For me, it feels better, because especially since we're very blessed to have James as a DM who does give fantastical descriptions for all of our different locations and the sort of setup. So it is very easy to sort of put yourself in the position that your characters are in. And I appreciate that not everyone has the sort of the internal vision, and so minis can help, maps can help. I know that every now and again I'd quite like to see a map just so I can make sure that what's in my head version is matching up to everyone else's, so I don't suddenly go, right, I'm going to go jump off this thing, and everyone's like, what? No, that's much steeper than you thought it was. Oh God. Things like that. I think it's just to make sure the details are set. But I think that the concept that he really enjoys the theatre of the mind, and I think that because they wouldn't have had as much access to individualized minis like Hero Forge and various other different things that you can go and get places, we print miniatures, all that kind of stuff, and get all the other stuff for the games, like the screens. They would have had access to that. So like James said, just pen, paper, a book, and some mates. That's all you need, and it's all in your head. And everyone couldn't like reading a book. everyone who's in that scene will have the same concept, but it all looks slightly different, and that's the beauty, is you just get your own little theatre.
Love it. Like that. What about you, Paul? What's stuck with you?
I think growing up with D&D, really, and I quite like to, like I said earlier, is run some games with my kids when they're able to, and I think that'll be a really good opportunity for them to develop all of those sorts of skills, like teamwork, thinking your way through things, problem solving, all that sort of stuff.
I'll be doing something very similar as well. I know, Alex.
Oh, same someday. No, again, he's a really fascinating guy, and he grew up. He's had such an incredibly unique life experience that it is no wonder that at the same table when we were playing with him, you can tell that this is a guy that's completely internalized the mechanics of how this world works, and it is when he's similar to when we're playing our game on our show. You're there in the universe. Things make sense as to why they're happening, and it does feel cohesive. It does feel natural. And him sort of illuminating on his childhood and the thought behind his new modules, and things like Gary Khan and experiences that he's had there, really kind of put that into perspective and made me understand sort of why. Again, you can tell he's grown up with it completely. I think the one thing that stood out to me, again, was that quote. Well, there's a couple of things. One was that quote about, it just so happened that because of who he was, his home game got published and became quote unquote canon. Mm-hmm. But even in his mind, he presented it in such a way that it's no different from anybody else's home game and their canon. And that's, again, like James was saying, it's the people that make D&D, it's the community that make D&D. Yeah. And the fact that your home game and what you've decided is the big bad, what you've decided is the relationship between two cities, what you've decided is the way that a good brie works, is how it works. And that is just as valid. Exactly. It's just as valid as the things that are written down. And then the other thing was about the rule of cool and the idea of his advice for specific GMs or what do you call them, nascent or like new GMs, that it's an interesting way to use rule of cool to enhance narrative by leaving out certain details of the scene. So you describe a fancy ballroom, and he gave the example of a chandelier, and if he had a map that just had torches on it, you couldn't do it. But if somebody said, and you gave them a general description like, oh, I'd like to grab the nearest chair and smash it over this person's head, that becomes part of the rule of cool. And as a DM and as a group, you can decide suddenly there's a chandelier there, suddenly there's a new chair there, because as long as
that happens a lot.
Great, yeah.
Suddenly there's a new captain there.
Yeah, exactly, right? There's a new captain in the cupboard,
That cupboard wouldn't have been on the map.
Exactly.
No. There are many things in our game that wouldn't have existed without you four.
Excellent.
Yeah.
And that's the beauty of it.
It's great.
It's the group storytelling he was on about, isn't it? It's the fact that you are.
Yeah. There's one moment that stood out for me. I actually just remembered it that happened in our game that we played with him. I don't know if you guys remember when we met the librarian.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden he hopped up from the table and started to sort of like act like an old librarian.
Yeah, he really did.
And that bit then.
Yeah, he did. Yeah.
Oh, wow.
That bit then was just sort of like it really, really hit me. I was like, God, I could just imagine him sitting at his own table and his dad doing that.
Yeah.
And that moment for me in that game was just quite a special moment.
Yeah. Wow. 100%.
Trouble is, I can't do that in a podcast because this is what that sounds like. Oh yes, I'm a million miles from the microphone. I've got to shout.
He's an old man. He's an old man, but he's very far away.
He's an old man, but on the other side of the room,
in the distance.
Yeah,
I like that.
I'm over
that's
here.
Really cool. It was a really nice
That's
spot.
Beautiful, yeah.
Go on, Tom. What's yours?
What's your takeaway?
What I took away from that, to echo what I said earlier, it's how this game was invented such a long time ago by a dad with his kids has helped so many millions of people in all sorts of different ways, but it's helped everybody. It's whether you are someone who is suffering, or someone who is bored, or someone who is looking for the next adventure, what it is, this game has helped everybody, and in such a positive way. And especially, and certainly how I identified with some of his army days. I'm very jealous because I could have chatted to him for days about army life. But next time we talk to him, we shall.
But it still influenced the game as well. It's still. I love the fact that he took the fact that he was in Iraq and came back and was like, nah, no one's running around in 130-degree heat while they've got heavy loaded backpacks and things like that on. There has to be something else. And then he just goes, right, let's just change the game. And because he, and it's like you're saying, all the cool that would be for everyone else going, no, you wouldn't be doing that. That doesn't make sense. We're not having that in our game. But he just goes, it's in the game.
It's it.
But real life does influence everything.
And that's why I would recommend checking out his books. Because, damn, they're good.
So obviously, he's been publishing his own modules.
Yeah, he certainly has. They look excellent, and I can't wait to play one with you.
But he also has, he invited us over to GaryCon, and he did a little plug there for it, and then describe what GaryCon is.
Yeah, what exactly is GaryCon?
GaryCon, well, it's essentially a Dungeons and Dragons festival all basically in honor of Luke's dad, Gary Gygax, the creator of Dungeons and Dragons.
Oh,
and it's held every year around just basically it was around the time he died, and they had a bit of a gathering, a bit of a celebration of his life, and that sort of has grown and grown and grown into this massive show of love for Dungeons and Dragons. And it's not just your average Joe that goes. It's kind of like one of these things that everyone who you wouldn't think loves D&D comes out of the woodwork.
Yeah.
And Alex sort of touched on it briefly earlier, in that it's famous names as well. And Luke mentioned that amazing game of D&D that he had with, and I wrote these down because it was quite a star-studded board of a game of people
at GaryCon, and it's nice to because obviously they, like Luke says, they weren't just doing that mad celebrity-filled game as an actual show or an event or anything like that.
They were literally just playing D&D
just playing it for fun, whilst at this wonderful D&D community event celebrating Gary Gygax in Wisconsin.
And I would say we would do exactly the same thing.
Yeah, we totally would. Vince, if you're listening.
Yeah.
Vince, you can come and play at our table. It's absolutely fine.
Not a problem.
Frankly, any of you, including Luke, can come and play at our table
by all means,
anytime.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Be incredible.
It's going to be quite a big one this year, isn't it? Because although it's he mentioned it was number 16, but it's actually
next year.
Next year. Oh yeah, next year because we've had March already.
Yes.
Makes sense. Calendars and all.
And the tickets are available now.
Yeah. Big 50.
Unless you're listening to this well into the future.
I thought they were in 2 days' time.
Well,
it depends when this goes out.
Yes.
Yeah, it depends when you're listening. They might be available in 2 days. They might be available now. They might not be available anymore.
Time is
you will be able to buy a ticket. There we
Time is wibbly wobbly, as you say.
At some point,
major
ticket will be available.
The major salient point is that I think the one that's upcoming at time of recording is the 50th anniversary of D&D. So, as Luke mentioned, there is going to be a lot of official D&D stuff there. They're going to go quite big with it. He didn't really delve into any specifics, but I expect that we'll know more once tickets go on sale and that kind of thing. And it seems like a fantastic event.
Yeah.
So if you want to go to GaryCon, the tickets will be on sale along with his 2 tournament modules, the Eye of Shantufi and the Heart of Shantufi, at gaxworks.com. As we already heard Luke describe it earlier, and we eagerly await his upcoming novels and, of course, the 3rd part of his Shantufi module series. Well, thank you, chaps, for being here. And thank you ever so much to Luke as well for taking the time to talk to James. And also thank you to you for listening and all of your support as well.
Yes.
So look out for the next episode of Parley. But if you can't wait to hear more from the crew of Roll Britannia, then you can find us on all good podcatchers out there. Apple, Google, Spotify, whatever. where we have new episodes coming out every single Wednesday, of which there are over 170 now. Is that right, chaps?
Yep.
Over 170 episodes.
Yeah. And counting.
So there's plenty to listen to. Not only that, but you can check out our Patreon. That's brand new. Have a good look at that.
Yes, Patreon 2.0.
Yes.
Exactly. Very exciting. For everyone. There's always new things coming out in the merch store, and also drop into our very, very active Discord server. There's lots of great people in there talking all things D&D and Roll Britannia. All the links are in the episode description.
Some crazy writing in that Discord. Honestly, some crazy writing in that Discord.
It's goodbye from me. It's goodbye from those four.
Hey, bye.
Love you,
Bye. Not hey.
And thank you very much for listening to Roll Britannia Parley.
Love you,
We
bye.
hope you enjoyed. I hope you got something valuable out
Luke,
of
can
it.
we have tickets to GaryCon, please?
Yeah, we love you, Luke.
Sports Social Podcast Network.
Lean on us.
We are here for you.
You matter.
You are not alone.
Are you feeling overwhelmed? Not sure where to turn? The National Suicide and Crisis Lifeline is there for you 24/7. Call or text 988 or chat at 988sc.org. Whether you're having an emergency or you know someone who needs support now, they can help you take the next step towards finding hope and healing.
There is hope. 988sc.org.